I finished the pre-build, so today I'm going to work on the final step before we actually start the customizing. The Minute Sister from BANDAI called Far-Farina. Hello everyone, this is Kawa from Hearns Hobbies. Today I'm going to keep working on the Hearns mascot, which is the Minute Sister from BANDAI called Far-Farina. And I finished the pre-build or test build before we actually proceeding to the customization. So today I'm going to work on the final step before we actually start the customizing. So yeah, let's take a look for the pre-build we have so far. And if you're wondering what is pre-build or test build, so when you're trying to do any complex customization for your modeling, you will need the pre-build to see if anything is cohesive and if there's any gate marks you will need to fix and all the joints are working properly and etc. etc. So all the parts should be ready to be painted after we finalize the pre-build. So pre-build is generally just cut the parts off and put them together. You don't need to worry about the gate marks, and this is a step that we need to work on the gate marks and sort of stuffs. So as you can see, so except for the gate marks, we will also sort all the gaps, like fix all the gaps on the body and parts in today's episode as well. And let's get started. So the tools we're gonna use today is 90% of the hobby knife, and this is my part separator, so you can separate all the parts very easily. You don't need to worry about if you hurt your parts when you're trying to depart anything. And we also need to use the sanding sponges. And another tool I'm going to use is the Tamiya sanding file, which is a smooth type, mostly used on the hair parts to get a sharper shape at the end of the edge. And that's a 1mm thickness of sanding sponge, very thin, very good to use on the curved surface, especially for the figures. We got a lot of like curved surface, right, compared to the gunpla. And yes, I think that's most of the tools we're going to use today. Except for that, we probably also need to use the cement to fill all the gaps, because we're going to repaint all the parts after, so we probably don't need the left sprues to do the colored putty afterwards. And that's why I prepared the Tamiya epoxy putty quick type, because I'm not a patient person. I want everything done as soon as possible. And this is the Mr. White putty from Mr. Hobby, which is a thinner lacquer-based putty that mostly used for gap filling, and it's somehow thinner than the epoxy putty. And when we are sculpting the putty, we will use the X28. This is for when the putty dries up and you want to retard it somehow, you use the X28. And let's get into the work. So before we get into the particular details in there, we will need to have an overall look for all the things that comes together. See if there's any very outstanding things we need to fix up. For example, from what I'm seeing, I think, for example, for the hair parts, we might need to do some gap fillings on those gaps and maybe redo the hair, and maybe redo the hair details with the putty afterwards, because I think the mold is somehow damaged, like broken hairs over here. And we will need to work on the shapes. Like for now it's like very roundish, we want them to be more sharp. And then we also, let me take off the head. Ugh. I think the adhesion of the armor up here is a bit off, so we might need to fix that afterwards and see if we need to glue them before we do the painting or afterwards, depending on the color scheme we're trying to go with. And I think, and you can tell this wing is a bit too loosened. Probably not to worry about that at this stage, because when you spray any surfacer or paints on the top, it will have like somehow a little bit thickness adding to the surface, so it will make the joints tighten. It will make the connection tighter than how it looks like for now. And yes, let me just quickly pull off the flying jet pack. And that's the blue tack I use to stick the front here, and we can get rid of them. And after we take off the head parts, we can tell like the adhesion of the parts on the top is still not going so well, so you can see some gaps over here. I think so what I'm going to do, I think, is to use some cement to put them together, and then for the color separation I will spray with one color and brush paint the details afterwards. And let's fix the most obvious gate marks on the surface. So for this step, I don't want to take off, like departing all the parts like into one, like every individual piece, because we want to save the amount of work we're doing during the modeling. So I'll just leave it like that and find if there's any gate marks I need to work on, for example the one on the hand. So what I'm generally doing is I use a hobby knife to trim this off a bit. Another technique is like you use the blade of hobby knife to scratch the surface. And I think we will need to see, I think we can fill this gap, this one here. So what I'm going to do is I took this off, also this one off, and then we take out the cement. Firstly, we're going to brush some into the gap, like in between them, like this, like that, and then we close it, like squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Give it a squeeze. You can see some of the plastics are squeezed out and melted and becomes to some leftovers on the surface, and that's what we want, because after this we're gonna sand them with the sanding sponge and we will get rid of the gaps. Just there's one thing you need to notice or pay attention is because this joint is a rotatable joint, so don't make any cements like onto the surface of the rotatable parts. So we're only working on the parts that are not moving. So that's the only thing we need to pay attention about. So we'll just leave this at the side and keep working on the rest of them at the same time. So we're definitely going to depart these two and get this one out. So we'll just leave it for now and move to another side. I think we'll need to clean this bit front. And I can tell this is a gate mark. Scratch them. And then let's close the gap for this side as well. So take them off and like that. And put this aside as well. And what we're gonna do for the upper body is we want to fill the gap from here all the way down to here, and then also this one as well, and same thing for this side. So we get rid of this mark and we fill the gap from here all the way down to here and then here. So we can do a bit of squeeze before we apply the cement to see if it does allow us to squeeze that much together. And we can tell it's a bit hard to get rid of the gap over here. And what I want to do is probably, let's see, let's just fix this part. Let's just fix the marks over here for now. Alright, and for now I'm going to take off the chest parts and like that. It looks a bit weird, but let's do it. And for now I'm going to take off the chest part. It sounds a bit weird, but let's do it. Like that. And I think for these parts, the best thing we can do is we melt some of the sprue from the same color and fill into the gap, because I know there is another way, is like you cut off a little bit of the shoulder joints to get more space to squeeze in, but I'm a little bit worried about if I damage them, so I will go with the safety, like the most safety choice that we can do, and we will apply the cement for the lower parts here. And let me quickly get the spruce. Okay, I'm back. Here I got the two cleaner for melting the spruce, and a small plate for put all the spruce in there. And very important thing is, don't throw any of the left spruce before you finish a kit, because you will never know when you will need them. So for now, I will depart the lower body and the chest armor part, so we can focus on this part for now. And I got the pink sprue over here. So what we will do is we'll take our side cutters, and we have our small plate over here. And then what we're gonna do is I think that's pretty enough. So chop them into, I'll just chop them into small pieces. It generally take around 10 minutes to melt them into ready to go status. Okay, I think it's ready to go onto the surface of the parts. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I use the tiny set, I use the smaller set, and take a little bit of the putty and just apply it to the gap. And that's for one side, and then we move to another side. Just be a little bit careful. We're doing the same thing over here. And you can see all the gaps are filled. We can worry about the details later, so I will use a clip to clip these parts and wait until it dries for a moment. And we'll put this aside. And like, some of you might wondering, like, how do you know the putty is ready to use? I would say when you can tell some of the small, very tiny parts are 100% melt, and it looks a little bit sticky, not too like watery, it's ready to go like this. And yes, we can clean this up. and that's what we do for that. And then we just, so before we close this gap, we're gonna quickly clean here. Just give it a scratch, scratch, scratch. And we can tell there's a gate mark over here. So for the gap over here, seems like it's gonna be a tricky one, because if we fill the gap for now and do the paint after, I will need to mask, like masking either these spots or the rest of them. Or if I just leave it over here for now, and then we do the sprays to the airbrushing and everything else, and then we close the gap, the cement will somehow melt the paint a little bit. So I think for me, the first method is a bit easier compared to the second one, compared to the second solution. So I will close the gap with the white putty for today, and I will worry about the masking later. So let's do it. So what I'm going to do is I use the white putty. Yep, that's enough for now. And I'll use the applicator to have a little bit of this. And this is how I use the white putty to fill the gaps. And I will use a clip to clip on that and wait until it dries. And then I will do the sanding. And then proceed to the leg parts. And I open the gap. So I can tell this side looks fine, but this gap looks a bit too deep. So I probably need to use another putty on the surface to flatten, to make them smoother. So I'll just leave it for now. Put this one aside. And same position to another side as well. And for the leg armors, let's have a look. We'll fix the parts over here. Just leave this piece for now. So I think this gap should be closed. So and we need to be very clear for which part is the panel lining and which part is the gap. So you definitely don't want to like get rid of the panel line details in there. And that's how we work with the leg parts. And now proceeding to the hair parts. Let's have a quick look and do a bit of planning before we start on the actual gap filling. So when we're trying to swap all the face parts, you will need to take off the front hair, and then let's see, so I think these two parts are separate, these two, and all the gaps on the top of here can be filled. I will use the sanding file. So first of all, I will use the sanding file to make it like to sharpen the edge of the hair. And normally it should be goes like and we can tell it looks much more better with just a sanding. So I think that's the way that we could solve this problem. When you're sanding on the top, just be very gentle, because for now the sharpened hair is very fragile, so you don't want to break any of those. Yeah, I can tell the shape is need to be smoother here. And yeah, that's how we work, and that's how we do the preparation for the hair parts. So that is, I think it covers all I want to talk about when we're doing the preparation of the painting procedure. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave in the comment section. For the next episode, I will start priming all the parts, and then we'll finally start the coloring. And I'm Kawa from Hearns Hobbies. See you in the next episode. Bye bye.